Hey, Courtney, Bhakti Wellness here. I'm in the beautiful Starlit Yoga in Penticton today, and I thought I would break down and explore a pretty all-over body posture asana called Upavistha Konasana, or seated wide leg forward fold. I'm going to add a few kind of variations into it so that we can really get into all parts of the torso, get into the back through flexion as well as through extension, as well as through lateral flexion or side bending. So that you can really kind of work a lot of the muscles throughout the entire torso, as well as those intercostal muscles between the ribs, as well as getting all the great benefits of working through the hips and through the legs. You may want to be seated on something. Today I'm seated on just a folded blanket. If you have any of those chip blocks, they can be really nice to sit upon. If you tend to be quite open in the low back and the hips, you don't need to sit on anything. It is an option, especially for those of us who are a little tighter through the hips and low back. You may want to have a strap. If you don't have a strap, a belt. I've taken the straps off of a duffel bag before, or you might use your robe tie. And you may also want to have two blocks or maybe two pillows or cushions of similar size. Again, props are always optional, and you might find they work really well for you, or they might not do much more than just kind of be a pain in the bum for you to maneuver and utilize. So you're gonna be able to make those decisions for yourself as you deepen and explore your practice. So as I said, Upavistha Konasana is a seated wide leg forward fold. So again, you might want to be seated on something. I have my mat so that when I open my legs into the pose, that I have a little bit of cushion underneath the heels, because it can feel fairly uncomfortable, especially if you're on a harder surface. If you are really, really tight in the hips and low back, you might need more than just a small folded blanket, or maybe you need a couple of a couple of chip blocks or something like that to elevate the hips even more. Males tend to be really, really tight in this area, and so it can be fairly difficult to attain. Now, you might not get your legs this wide. Your legs might be quite a bit closer together, or you might be able to take your legs much wider apart than I can. So start to explore this. Now, because I'm doing a more hatha-inspired variation of this pose, I want you to find musculature throughout the entire lower half of the body. So I want you to think of dorsiflexing your feet, or plantar flexion, depending on how you want to say it. But I want toes up towards the ceiling, and then feel as if you're trying to close the gap between the top of your foot and your shin bone. And then I want you to feel as if you're pressing your heels further away. So you really want to extend out through the heels while guiding the tops of the toes towards the body. Now, as you start to come into this pose, I want you to think of drawing your attention, your awareness below the navel and above the pubic bone, and start to draw in and up. That engages your lower transverse abdominals. In Hatha Yoga, we call that Uddiyana Bandha, or your navel lock, which is typically located about 3 finger lengths below the navel. From here, bring your fingertips to the mat behind you, and I want you to traction down and away from the body with the hands to help lift up through your sternum and heart space. Now, take some time here to breathe, right? The body often yields when you hold for a little bit of time, okay? And in doing this, I want you to try to actively soften a little bit into the hip creases. Our hip flexors tend to really hyper engage a lot of the time, doing more work than is necessary. So try to actively release through the inner thighs into the hip creases. Okay. Now, this is a big abduction. We're moving the legs away from the center, so you're typically going to feel this through the midline of the legs, so down through the groin, the inner thighs. You might feel this the insides of the knees. You'll probably feel this through the backs of the legs. So really getting a nice stretch through the hamstrings, through the adducting muscles. All right. Continue to think of engaging through the legs to help pull the toes, drawing the tops of the feet towards the shin bones. Continue to extend out through the heels. Okay? Now, from here, it might feel best to have the hands back behind you, and if you tend to feel like you're struggling, just to have your shoulders stacked over your hips, maybe for a little bit you take the hands further behind you just to offset the flexion into those hips. Okay? If this is feeling pretty good for you, you want to bring it into a deeper forward fold, a deeper flexion into the hips. Maybe you'll start to walk your hands forward. Now, I want you to draw the shoulders away from the ears and continue to lift the sternum forward and up so that we're getting really nice extension through the spine. And actively hug your scapula, your shoulder blades, a little bit closer to the spine and on the back side of the body. Again, notice your breath as you start this process of moving forward. You can even think inhales to lengthen, exhales to fold, drawing the heart forward and up. Okay? When you come to an edge, that place where the body naturally resists your movement forward, pause and breathe. Now, some of you might be able to get your chest right onto the ground, walk your arms right out in front of you. If you're looking for more musculature and you're quite open into the hips, tent on your fingertips, draw the shoulders away from the ears. Okay? If you tend to be fairly tight through the hips and low back, like I am, you might find a block or a bolster, something to place your elbows on. But actively draw the shoulders away from the ears while continuing to kind of pull the heart forward and up. Breathe. Now, if you find this becoming a little bit overwhelming through the backs of the legs or the insides of the knees, a couple of options would be to draw your feet closer together, okay? Or you might find that you want to wedge something underneath each of your knees, and that's just going to help release some of the tension in the hamstrings, which will then kind of ease up the degree of sensation. Now, I want you to take a breath in, lengthen through the spine, think long, tall spine. As you exhale, start to bow the head forward, round down through the shoulders, bringing flexion into the spine, okay? And as you bring flexion into the spine, just observe. Observe how it's changed your flow of breath. Observe how the sensations have changed within your physical form. Often going from an extended spine to a spine with flexion can really change the dynamics of the pose and your experience in that pose in that moment. Couple more breaths here. And on your next inhale, you can start to stack the shoulders back over the hips. Beautiful. All right, give your legs a little bit of a break. Draw them forward. Maybe you want to kind of give them a little shake or jiggle. Maybe you want to flop your feet from side to side. Maybe you'd like to draw some circles with your ankles in one direction and the other. That just helps to release into the hips and pelvis. When you've kind of given yourself a little bit of reprieve from your wide leg stance, I'd like you to find that pose once again. Now, if you feel you went too far last time, do bring your heels a little closer together. If you're looking for a little more challenge, maybe trying to play your boundaries, your edges a little bit more by taking the feet a little wider. I want you to, once again, start with the fingertips tracking on the mat behind you. So tracking down and away from the body, lifting up through the heart. Beautiful. Now, from here, if you tend to be a little bit tighter and you like to have a little bit more support in a pose, especially with side flexion, then you're welcome to take a strap. From here, take the strap, loop it on the sole of the right foot, okay? And bring the strap into the right hand. Have the shoulders stacked over the hips, really engaging through Uddiyana Bandha once again, drawing in and up below the navel and above the pubic bone. From there, you can start to apply a little bit of traction onto the strap if you have it. If you're not using the strap, just have the right hand resting on the right thigh or leg. Yeah. And then from there, you're going to inhale to lengthen. If the left shoulder permits, bring the left arm up in line with the ear. If the left shoulder is really tight or you're kind of recovering from an injury, then you can have the arm by your side or turn the thumb down, bend at the elbow, and have the back of the hand rest at the sacrum. Whichever arm variation you've taken here or here, Draw the shoulders away from the ears. Inhale to lengthen. As you exhale, place traction with that right hand on the strap and start to reach up and over to the right. Now notice as I begin this side flexion, I'm not turning forward. I'm not drawing my left pectoral towards the mat. I really want to think of stacking my left shoulder over my right. The shoulders continue to slide down the back side of the body. The hand might be able to kind of walk its way closer to the foot. Now, if you tend to be really open in this, in through the side body, then maybe bringing your right arm back of the shin, or sorry, back of the forearm beside the shin, and continue to breathe. One day you might be able to bind your hand around your foot, and if you're really open through the side body, your left hand will be able to grab the outside of the right foot. Hold for a few breaths. Your gaze is wherever's comfortable, whether it's down at the right leg, whether it's out in front of you, whether it's up towards the extended arm. I want you to think of rooting down through the legs, engaging through the abdominals. Inhale to come up. Beautiful. From here, we're going to switch sides. So again, ask yourself how the right shoulder's doing. Maybe right arm up in line with the ear. Maybe the thumbs down, bending at the elbow, bringing the back of the hand to the sacrum, fused bones above your bum crack. All right, left hand may be on the thigh. You might take the strap, loop it along the bottom of the left foot. Okay, whichever arm variation you choose. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale, start the side flexion, reaching, down the left leg. Think of stacking the right shoulder over the left. Gaze is wherever is comfortable, whether down towards the left leg, whether directly in front of you, or whether up towards the ceiling, over the right shoulder. Again, if you're quite open, maybe the forearm comes on the medial aspect or the inside line of the left shin. I want you to continue to think of hugging your scapula, your shoulder blades closer together, extending through the crown of your head. Couple more breaths. Root down through the legs, engage through the abdominals, and then root down to rise up. Inhale to come up. Beautiful. Lean back into your hands. Really activate through the legs, really engaging them, flexing the feet, squeeze the inner thighs together, and let that go. Again, just doing any sort of movement to release the pose. Now we had quite a great abduction, so again, we were moving away from the midline quite a bit, so you might find that you want to work through some seated knee drops. This also helps because we had quite a lot of flexion into the hip line, so this will invite some extension through the top leg, or through the top hip, we'll say. Beautiful. Well, I hope that you enjoyed these variations of Upavistha Konasana, or seated wide leg forward fold. Again, you can get really creative with props and within poses. The more you familiarize yourself with postures and the more time you spend on the mat, the more you'll be able to kind of play a little bit, really explore how certain engagements, whether you're flowing within extension or through flexion, front and back, or through lateral flexion to the sides, you might be able to find some really juicy spots and kind of deepen your practice through your body awareness. Anyway, I hope that you have a really, really awesome rest of your day. Please do share your smiles with strangers. You never know when you might brighten someone's day, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.